I just take full responsibility. I make them a lot. Like I'm not like super dad or anything like that. I mean, like I'm too authoritative at times. I'm short tempered. I mean, you list them out. You just listed me out, but I'm conscious of it. And I'm not sure I always was. I'm not sure.
Wh-
I think as you get older, you realize as they get older and you get older of I guess what I'm saying is you realize that you have less control.
Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. My friend Joe, what's this mean to you?
What it means to me is no matter what, do the hard thing, be strong. It's going to be okay. And God's always with us. And all my kids have it either in a little ring or a necklace or some form in their Bible. And what I'm really trying to do is get them to realize you can do what you want to do. It just takes a little bit of courage and use the Lord's strength to do it. And it's worked so far.
That's awesome. Normally when we're talking about strength, we're really talking about, as a father, that's sort of one of the principles or values you want to bring forward. You've adopted that into your family at large.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's that been like?
Well, I mean, we have 5 kids, so it takes a lot of strength just to get through every day. Yes. And there is a component to that. And in the recent years, they've seen their mom battle cancer. I've got a daughter that's got cerebral palsy. And being a kid, just those are extreme examples, but just being a kid today is not easy.
Mm.
They're it's a little different than when you and I grew up. There's this thing called the internet, um, and the polarization of that. So it just it's one of those things where no matter what happens, like get back up, be resilient, and it's gonna be okay. And we all leaned on our faith. And I mean all of us, all the kids, and I see a lot in them. Now they're kids, so don't let me pontificate that they're perfect angels. They are not.
Right.
Uh, but they are strong, and I've seen their resilience, and that's what that's about. Is that and it's they recognize that that's God's hand helping them, not just their own fortitude, so to speak. They've never used that word, by the way. That was my word, fortitude.
Fortitude.
Yeah,
Good. I love one of my favorite movies is Batman Begins. Number one, Liam Neeson. But that touching scene when I don't even know what Father Wayne, whatever the father's name is. I know it's
yeah.
Mr. Wayne.
Bruce Wayne's dad.
Bruce Wayne's dad, exactly. Bruce Wayne's dad is
Yeah,
um he falls down the well in the movie in this version of the origin story with the bats and falls down, somebody runs, Alfred it's like a hoists him out
right,
of the old well and Mr. Wayne is carrying him back and he just says, "What do we do when we fall down?" It's like we stand back up,
right.
right? And it's like and I think of like the theme of that movie, the theme of Batman Begins is just get up, you just keep going. And that's,
Yeah,
that's Batman. Batman is just like just keep going. Like just keep going, keep that resiliency. Yeah, life today is very different because of things,
yeah,
particularly the internet. You mentioned the polarization of different messages. We were talking a little bit before the show. There was 2 things that I wanted to bring up, and first we'll talk about this one is, you really inspired me a while ago. We were working together, and we were talking about charitable giving,
yeah,
and we were talking about, um, there's the hygiene, what we would call tithing,
right.
and
Automatically out of your paycheck that you don't see.
exactly, uh, and then there's giving. So what is giving, Joe?
And when I think about it, it has to have a consequence or hurt a little bit, or it's not really giving. You're not really giving anything.
Mhm.
And even with, my kids, it's like, our oldest boy, they wanted to go do a pay it forward in our youth group. Well, that's easy because you're standing in line and you can just pay for the person behind you. That doesn't
Right,
require anything.
right.
Okay. Um, and yeah, it's a little bit of their money and they're 16 to 17-year-olds. So they got, they aren't rich, so to speak. But, our challenge is, hey, we're going to go to the food pantry and you're going to have to sit eyeball to eyeball with someone who, doesn't have a thing in the world. And that's painful because you do. And it takes work and it takes effort. And it's just that's a gift. I'm giving, not, hey, pay for this person behind me. That was their first attempt, by the way, which is okay. I mean, for 17-year-old kids or whatever, I thought it was all right. But that's what I mean for me, if I'm going to give something, it has to cost something to me.
Mm.
Otherwise, I'm just basically, it's out of convenience, right? Like it's just, I don't even feel it or think about it. That's how I see that.
I love that idea. It's I think that there's a lot of times in life where we stop at it's good enough,
Yeah.
right? What I'm doing here is good enough. And I think, when I look at you, and I shared this with you before, when I look at somebody that's had the taste of success that you've had, I can count on my hands the number of people that are in my circles that have that level of success. And we always say as Americans, I believe it's like we're a very charitable
Yeah.
society. Like a lot of them, like it's a very good number. It's well above 50%. I think it's like something like 60% of Americans give regularly. And only because I've done some research into the IRS and this is sort of what I'm about. Like, you know, uh, 10 million families make less than 60 grand a year, with food insecurity. And that's
Yeah.
distributed across the United States. So we're not talking just coastal. That's the average of the 10 million families everywhere. So some are going to be below 20% or 20,000. Some are going to be above. That's whatever it happens to be. But that sense of giving today is far more easier with money and still incredibly valuable. Still incredibly valuable to
Sure.
do that. Different people need it. I think of like my local city mission, give to that all the time. Um, but that time component, that's something you don't hear a lot of. I hear about it from the you really want to have really good serotonin, you really want to have good neurochemicals, go give your
Yeah.
time. You're right. Like it's like this, it's selfishly. It's like what altruistic, what's that crap that crypto dude got blamed for?
The kindest billionaire on the planet. How's
What
that
was it?
going?
Altruistic something. It was like altruistic
I don't
giving
know.
or whatever the
Yeah.
nonsense was. It was like, it certainly wasn't hurting, but that time component, that's the one resource. Always hear about it, no matter what income level you're at, no matter what your health is. Time, right?
Yeah.
People that make a lot of money, they always want to pay for their health because health is that's your hourglass, right? Time
Correct.
runs out. What are your what are your thoughts on this giving? What are your thoughts on how do you execute on that? How do you make it hurt?
Well, I'd say the most painful thing that I've done recently is I volunteered to coach my twin 8-year-old's girls basketball team, which was truly excruciating. Um, it's 30 minutes of practice and 45 minutes of a game on a Saturday, which doesn't seem like a lot, but to me, like 2 hours of my Saturday, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And, it's through our church. So you've got kids that are in the leagues to come to church and, you're dealing with 8-year-old little girls. So like my coaching demeanor with them is probably a little different than it is with my 15-year-old boys baseball team or when he played baseball 2 years ago. Like it's different. You have to have a different approach. It's harder. They don't get things as quickly, but what you're giving is the leadership, number one, and you're giving your time and you're planting the word of God in them. I mean, a lot of it is centered around that. So I'm fortunate to have a church that does a lot of outreach, whether it's community or sports outreach and so forth. But I see that more valuable than the money I've committed to the church. The money is actually easy and painless. Like I don't feel it or think about it. But at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, I start dreading having to be at the church for 2 hours because it's a little bit painful for me because it's hard. That's, I've done a lot of stuff. That's hard. Now, you said something that was interesting. The serotonin, when you're at the end and you play the game and they're all giddy and fired up and high fiving and it's all fun. That then, selfishly you get satisfaction of that, and that they're all looking to you as like, hey, that's a person that cares about us from the kids' perspective. The parents see it. I didn't like lose my cool, fortunately, in most of the games, so I was a somewhat representative of Christ. Uh, you shouldn't argue with a ref in a game. That's my philosophy. I argue with a lot of refs, but not in the 8-year-old league. But you know what I mean? Like that's when the real fulfillment of it is when you see how much joy and fun they're having together. But I mean, that's just in my mind, that's a big sacrifice. And I've coached I all of my children baseball, basketball, and football for the boys, and basketball for the girls because I can't coach gymnastics and volleyball. I just don't. I'm not there yet. And I can't teach piano. But, I've been doing that. My oldest is 17. I've been doing that since he was 5 in kindergarten, his first basketball team. And I did that while I was in corporate America, and that became a real challenge. And now it's a little easier, but at the same time, my older kids are playing all over, they travel for all their sports and stuff. So from a time commitment standpoint, it's just juggling that. I mean, I'm a uh, amateur Uber driver. I have to take people. It's my real career. Um,
Love it.
but anyway, from the giving aspect. It's doing something that requires you to be there and to sacrifice and to actually give of yourself versus just like, hey, here's my whatever every week and special gift at the end of the year.
I think there's a lot of criticism on this, now that we're talking about the church and Christian community about what's the purpose of the Abraham and Isaac story on the mountain, right? And a lot of people are like, okay, well, what kind of God makes you sacrifice your son? And if you know the story, right, the son was the thing that Abraham wanted. Like he was a false start in life, didn't really start until he was 80, didn't really leave the house until he was well into his elder years.
Yeah.
Pretty dry. And by dry, I meant like no fertility, unable to have kids. His wife Sarai wasn't able to give him kids. Cheated on his wife. Or sorry, that's not correct. Technically, that's the action, but
Pretty sure it's
Sarai,
correct.
well,
Uh,
Sarai encourages
yeah.
Hagar to sleep with Abraham, so it was kind of like a complicated
Yeah.
to
I'll
have.
let the Lord sort that one out.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
I think he did. So, and then but the core idea there is that, hey, this is the thing. This is the identity of Abraham. He wanted to be the father. He wanted to have the son. And so God was saying, hey, give me your best. Give me your best. How far are you willing to go? And I think like when I think of the parable there, because I like the action itself is unfathomable, right?
right.
We're not willing.
It's inhuman. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
rationally do something like that.
Yeah. But the parable being give your best and God will provide.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about resiliency, strength, having that commitment to these little people in the Feel Good Fatherhood community. Like we applaud that. That's great. But then you also mentioned, hey, you're full time in corporate world,
Yeah.
doing your thing, and so all those time commitments. These are as you climb that ladder, as you increase your income, that dollar value of your hour increases.
Very much.
Right. So the 2 hours might be static as far as like the quality of time that we all have. But the earning potential of that 2 hours of having the breakfast with the whatever or having the lunch with the whomever that can have an impact. And so you were doing something that was hurting beyond the discomfort of waking up early, beyond the discomfort
Yeah.
of, the I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a gymnasium with 28-year-olds.
There's 4 courts going at a time too, so it's like the
Yeah.
volume.
Yeah, the cacophony, yeah. Man,
Uh,
that's nuts. But
it was.
I love the fact of the hormones, right? The discussion of the serotonin, the release, because what that's pointing at is it's built into us that when it hurts, there's a long-term reward. Serotonin fundamentally different from dopamine. Dopamine over in
Yeah.
like 15 minutes. Serotonin lasts weeks. It lasts a week, I think. It's like 1 week. Feel good for a week
Wow.
by giving your time. So, Don't do it for the serotonin, fathers.
Yeah. Make the sacrifice and
Yes.
you'll be rewarded. And that's what God, I mean, that's what God said to Abraham,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
make this one and I'll reward you.
Yeah.
And he almost did. So
Yeah. That's nuts. Father of the nations, right?
yeah.
That's, uh, that's the story there. So, fatherhood, right? We
Yeah.
have big family. That's great. Like 5, that's big. That's a big family
Pretty
by
big.
today's standard. That's huge.
Yeah.
Lots of ups and downs. We were also talking about, another paternal relationship, this idea of, and I wanna just cue you up here. You have a very interesting corporate life.
Yeah.
Definitely the top, if we're talking about percentages, definitely the top of the 1%. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Paint that picture for
Sure.
us?
I mean, I was a corporate executive um, from a financial services company, and I guess you would call me a field executive. I had 2 states, the great state of Illinois that I live in now, and Iowa, our adjacent neighbor here. And it was about 200 people across 9 offices, financial advisors and staff and so forth. And we were talking about the leadership of that. There's the management of that, which is the metrics and the scorecards and the numbers and the widgets and those things. And those are important, but there's also the leadership when you're at the end of the day, you're responsible. And that's one of those things where from just a paternalistic thing, like whatever goes wrong, you're responsible. Whatever goes right, you give that credit to someone else, just like you would with your kids. Like you don't pound your chest, like, look at how great I am. But you show that
I
I do
helped you with your
sometimes.
homework. Look how great
Yeah,
I
like
am.
that math was easy. What's wrong with you? Uh, by the way, their mother is phenomenal at homework. I'm not. Um, but that level of responsibility where people can lose their livelihood, lose their job, and they're people, so they're constantly making mistakes. I mean, it's not like I made 10 by 10 every day. That was kind of my rule. Like I'm going to blow up as much as I can by mid morning so I can fix it by noon, have lunch, and then go back to blowing stuff up. But that level of responsibility carries over to like pretty much everything you do. I mean, you see things, tend to see them before they happen a lot because you have to anticipate crisis and things going wrong. And it toughens you because you can't please that many people. You kind of give up on making everyone happy. And if you are a people pleaser in a role like that, you're doomed because it's just not possible. And you have to be an authority and you have to do what you say. And you're always being watched just like you are in the house. Like you can tell your kids to be great, but if you're a shithead, like that's my language, but if you are, they see that. They do what they see.
Mm.
They don't, and that carries over to everything. People, I can talk about how great a parent or businessman I am or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, like people watch you. And if you get results, you get results. And if you treat other people well and you work hard and you do all the things that you want them to do, they'll most likely just do them. Quite frankly, whether it was with the people that reported into me or with my kids or whatever it is, I mean, I don't have to sit there and give them a bunch of instruction. I just had to be I'm there the earliest. I'm there the latest. I'm working the hardest. I do what I say. I have the tough conversations. Even as a parent, I think what I see more than anything is like, because life is so busy and so hard, and I'm guilty of this. So I'm not, when I go like this, there's 3 back at me. People want to avoid tough conversations
Mm.
because it's more painful. It takes time. It's exhausting. And that's true. And, when you've got 5 kids or 200 people, think about how many conversations you could be having or should be having. And that's something I learned, like nip it in the bud, be direct, be thoughtful, be empathetic, but don't let things fester, kill it while it's little type of mentality. I do
Mm.
that with my kids too. Like if I see something I anticipate going to be a big problem, we address it.
What are
Now the
some of
old
these what are some of these big conversations? I'm like, this is really fascinating.
with the kids or
In
with
general,
business.
both.
I'll tell you the one that with the kids is who they're hanging out with,
Mm.
how much time they're spending on, like I'm not one of those parents like you can't have any screen time or any of that stuff. But, you know, I'll give you a specific example of this. My oldest son, he's phenomenal. He's a great kid. His grades are immaculate. He's not a bad kid, meaning like, he's not a big partier or anything like that. Spends an enormous amount of time with his girlfriend, who's a sweetheart. And then on video games, and I'm like, dude, you got to remember something. You're going to have to go out and connect with people. You need to get like, I like and he may see this someday, maybe after we do this, but I said this to him. I'm like, you need to spread the ball around a little bit. You need to hang out with the boys a little more. You need to do things that are not just dependent upon those two things, because you're going to find yourself, if something goes wrong in either area, now what?
Mm,
That's seeing like the ripple effects. Now, Mama Bear is like, don't be hard on him. I mean, her job is to nurture him. My job is to toughen him. And that's how I see the world. And not to be an asshole, but like just for them to have a toughness to him. But that's, in my mind, having that conversation where I could he's not a problem. So I could say nothing. Right. And he's a great kid.
I
If I say nothing, then it's easier on me. His mom's not as mad at me as she was when I directly got on that, and he didn't feel the way he felt. That's the easy thing to do. But the right thing to do was to give him a perspective that he didn't have, because it's not like he was bad or doing something wrong, right? I
yeah.
mean, that's I think as a dad, when you let those things go, they will come back big. And I've got a 13-year-old daughter, and that's a different ball game, right? So just don't, whether it's other girls or other boys, don't let people influence you on how to act or what to be, or, trying to make them happy all the time and fitting in. And that's tough. I mean, look, it, all of us want to fit in. Like we do. That's normal. I don't want them to be like, I don't care, but don't put all your eggs in that basket. I think God answered two really key, Christ himself answered two quick questions that we're always asking. And this is not my saying. So just whatever. It's, am I good enough and will I be loved? Is what I'm
Mm,
doing right now, making you love me. And am I good enough? And that's yes, you are. You believe, yes.
right.
So like I'm trying to get them to think of that now. Now that's easily said, but now you put yourself in junior high or high school or whatever. And so as a parent, I'm trying to have those conversations so that they at least have the perspective. They're still going to do a ton of stupid stuff and whatever trends or whatever, but I'm trying, it's almost like planting seeds to them, Jay. It's like, at least the seeds are there. I can't control them. If you try to control you tell me you've got little kids, try to control a little kid, wait till they're like, their brains more developed and, and they can actually think for themselves.
It's interesting because I think of on this particular topic, I love the joke. It was Hassan Minaj told this joke, and it was uh growing up in an Indian household, you can be anything you want as long as it's a doctor, engineer, or lawyer.
Is that right? I like that. What
That's
is it? Doctor, engineer, lawyer?
yeah, doctor,
I'd
engineer,
scratch
lawyer,
out the doctor part, but no,
something
I'm
like
kidding.
that.
I think my
Yeah, but
daughter wants to be one.
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It was just that core idea of the different kinds of households, right? The different kind of pressures that we put on, and
Yeah.
and I was thinking like the helicopter parent, the tiger mom, and all these different like just stereotypes, like the bullshit
Yeah.
stereotypes that we have out there of different things, and hearing um, the firsthand results of that, of like trying to control and trying to do things, and with a feel good community, we're really focused on that fulfillment, and I think one of the things I think here that's really interesting that you said, and we'll kind of jump in this a little bit, is you're not you can't control your kids. You can
Mhm.
steer them, you can instill values in them, you can raise them, you can point out different things, you can coach them, you can do all that kind of jazz, right? We're doing everything we can to make sure that we're not pulling them through life, that we're kind of like walking behind them, kind of doing this, like kind of keeping them
Yeah.
facing the
On
right
the
way
guardrails.
on the guardrails, right? And uh the challenge comes is when we exchange or confuse ownership with responsibility.
Correct.
So I don't own the results of my daughters. I don't own the results of anybody except for myself.
Correct.
Um, but I'm responsible for the behavior, and I'm responsible for what results they generate, especially if I could have done something, especially if I avoided a hard conversation. And I love that because I think about there's been plenty of times, even, my eldest is 10, just been like, there are mean people and there are nice people in the world.
Yeah.
And right now, it's not that people are mean or nice, it's that you're all immature. You don't know. However, if people are being specifically mean to somebody else, because she did, what's that movie? The sniper one? Is it American Sniper? Where he says, like, there's the dogs, the wolves, and the sheep,
Yeah.
right? They did the example. So there's most people are sheeps. They need a dog to take care of them, because a wolf will prey on the sheep. But a dog's responsibility is to take care of the sheep, but also to defend against the wolf, right? And so you want to be a dog, like you want to be a
Yeah.
dog in the world. You don't want to be a wolf. You don't want to prey on people. You don't want to be a sheep. You want to be a dog. And and through our teaching, one of her friends was getting picked on and bullied, and she like stepped up
Nice.
and she was like, "Hey, what you're doing is mean. You're being really mean to my friend."
I love it.
She's like 9 years old. It's like, yes, yes, cultivate that. Uh, but I think it's that I had pride, but I know I didn't create that. And we were talking earlier about ways to do it well, ways to do it poorly, good and bad fathers.
Mhm.
And I think this is definitely something that I think you and I both agree is that don't take ownership, but take responsibility.
100%. What I mean, and what I think we're saying with responsibility is I just own the results, just like a leader. Like I didn't control them, but I own them. I mean, I'm in charge. If you don't want to own them, don't be in charge.
Mm.
If you don't want to own the results, then just don't be in charge. Let someone else do it. Let someone else raise your kids or run your business. Because the greatest freedom that we've been given is that I'm responsible. Like that's actually freedom. Like once you click in your mind, I'm sure you have. Like I'm responsible for the good and the bad and the rain and everything. Then I'm free. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about other people and what they say and do because I'm responsible. And I hope, and that's a hard road. Like you don't just wake up and say it and do it. You got to live it. But I think that, as a dad, like that's the thing. And that's probably the thing that's missing because most of them are going to most people blame others for for even their mistakes.
Mm.
I just take full responsibility. I make them a lot. Like I'm not like super dad or anything like that. I mean, like I'm too authoritative at times. I'm short tempered. I mean, you list them out. You just listed me out, but I'm conscious of it. And I'm not sure I always was. I'm not sure.
What
I think as you get older, you realize as they get older and you get older of I guess what I'm saying is you realize that you have less control.
when did that switch flip for you?
Um, I don't know if there was an event, but really my oldest two, as you see them get into more of adult-like problems, the emotional things, that's when it's, more in your face because, if my 8-year-old has a problem, I can physically solve it they're generally more like it's a physical issue of size or maturity or whatever it is. But when it's emotional, it's just you can't do it. I mean, and if you try, you will repel them, drive yourself crazy, and everyone, what I mean? Like that just doesn't.
What's this example? This is good.
Like my 13-year-old daughter has a friend. She's not allowed to have a boyfriend, but she has a friend, and he was being a turd. And he's 13, and I'm 47 on Monday. Like my first instinct was to fix that problem quickly. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that would just like think of the ramification. I mean, that literally was my like gut was like, I'm just going to show up and handle this
Right.
because I can. But then think of how bad that would be at large. Problems for me, problems for family, problems at school. So my level of control wasn't to just end the problem. It was to help her deal with it and don't play into that like the silly games that were being played that were hurting her. I wanted to show her like, okay, like you don't let someone treat you like that, which it wasn't abusive. It was stupid kid stuff, but like she was upset. And I
So
don't want, like you got girls, right?
yeah, yep,
I'm going to tell you this right now. All the cliches about having daughters are true.
got it.
I mean, they just are. Like with my boys, it's like, you'll be fine. That's how I think. With my girls, it's like, I will fucking kill you. You
Right.
decide, let's do it. After all the God talk, like your brain goes right to like, I will end this,
Mm,
which you can't. And I'm being a little facetious, but you know what I mean? Like you have an instinct buried in you that like that isn't going to happen. But in modern society, you can't treat it that way. And if you do that, you're really not, no one wins there. Like you're not helping them. Like even if you just said, hey, don't do that,
I
you're better
remember
to equip them. You're better to equip them to handle the hard times and be resilient than you are to just go ahead and snuff it out. That's how I mean, that's where I would say I've grown as a adult or as a father is like, hey, let's learn how to handle this versus I'm going to come in and take care of it. And there are parents, whether it's playing in sports, how the grades are going in school, behavior that come in and do what I wanted to do because they can just, it's like someone coming in and throwing a fit versus
mm,
teaching their kid, here's how you handle adversity. Look, you know, I my life's been pretty good. Like I'm not sitting here and saying that, but it's no shortage of adversity. So, I would if I had to lean on anything, it would be like being relentless and being resilient
mm,
because it's gonna throw you a bunch of curveballs. And I'm preaching to the choir. Every human you've met has like a litany of all the hard things they've dealt with. So the better you can help them understand that that's coming and prepare for it, I think the better off they're going to be. And most of this is out of our control. Like people are going to be bad. Accidents are going to happen. You're going to make poor decisions. I mean, those are all, I don't think those are new thoughts to me and humanity. I think that is humanity. Like it's just how it is. So I don't know. I rambled on there, but
I think I you're fine. I think there's a satisfaction that you get of completing a project well done. And then there's the pride you feel, good pride, right? There's the pride you feel when somebody else does the job. Right. And I think
yeah,
that's what we're kind of describing. That like one of our roles as a parent is to make adults. Adults got
yeah,
to be able to deal with things.
right.
Yeah.
Because most of the time stuff doesn't bounce your way. It just doesn't. You got to
Yeah.
go out and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Love that. What are the things that we have sorry, what are the things, what are the other values that you have for your family? Right? Strength is one. We've just spent much time talking about strength. Like what else? What else is really important to
Well,
have there?
I think the other one that, and it's hard for me, by the way, it with strength, you got to have some compassion. You know, my kids are fortunate. Christmas was an extravaganza. And right here where we live, I don't know, there's like 3,000 families where the kids don't have winter coats. And not everybody has a mom and dad that, care as much and try to build them up. And some people, you know, some people aren't as smart as you have to, like kids they don't always understand. Some people aren't as smart as you. Some people aren't as lucky as you have been. Um, and the way you treat people says a lot about you. And there are times when I'm a hothead. I don't know if you've caught this from me. There are times when I probably say something too directly to someone that I feel has overstepped their bounds with me or my family. And I think that's okay. I think you don't want to be a doormat, but you have to take into consideration that everyone you run into is going through some shit. And we kind of, there's a lot of sarcasm in our family. We're just like by nature smart Alex. Um, and it's okay to kind of tease each other and everything. But the rule is really, You can't do that to someone who can't help it. Like, if they can't help it, then, that's different. Like, I'm not one of those parents that's like, "You can't say anything mean about anyone." I mean, we tease each other, we tease our families like that, but if someone really cannot help their situation, you should be compassionate, and I'll tell you, I mean, my kids aren't afraid to walk up to a homeless person and give them money. Now, I don't particularly think that's the safest thing on the planet, but I don't also discourage it that often. Um, they they see giving and courtesy. I as a parent, there's moments where you think you should take some credit. I get a lot of compliments about how well they're behaved, like, in public, and just they do little things. They open doors and say thank you, and I don't know, but I don't see every kid doing that. But the compassion side is like, instead of making, crap of somebody, try to think through what they're going through. And they've got friends that come around here that, we've got one that their parents are going through an ugly divorce. And, my wife's got my daughter and this girl in our Wednesday youth group, which, by the way, I hear stories from the girls' youth group, which I'm not a leader of, and it's a different ball game. Um, just God did not equip you or I for that. Just telling you. But you see how hurt that kid is, and my daughter's got a lot of similarity to me. She's pretty witty and stingy sometimes, but I've seen her change her compassion towards that girl, and they're friends, but like, she's almost taking it easy on her. That's the way I would describe it, like, because she knows she's struggling.
Mm,
But so the value I would say is like, what did Jesus say? Treat people the way you want to be treated.
right.
And they take that to heart. And my 11-year-old boy is a gentle giant. He's just now he's mischievous. He might be an evil genius, but he's got a big heart. I mean, he's really, my grandma, who's 94, gave him $50 for Christmas, and he gave it back to her saying, "You may need this." She doesn't, but he does. He's like, that's how his mind works. So I don't know. They're all very loving and show a lot of compassion. I mean, to everyone else, not to each other. They fight like cats and dogs. Uh, I think if you can be if you can have that balance of it's kind of like the ability to be strong when needed, but most of the time be compassionate.
I was reflecting on your story and how you raise these kids and what kind of environment you've created for them. And a lot of the time, you're not carrying the torch. You've allowed parts of the world to teach them.
Yeah.
You can't, uh, maybe the strong language is appropriate. Can't raise a kid on Netflix. Like maybe that's like can't raise a kid on YouTube. Like I'm not sure. Like I don't know. I think that, well, what I do know is interaction in community, whatever that looks like, is the healthiest thing for us.
Oh yeah.
We're absolutely meant for it. And when you describe it very accurately. You can't have compassion for somebody if you can't understand their situation.
Yeah.
And if you don't see enough of the world, you can't do anything about it. I've had a colleague once tell me that what verse is like, only keep good things in your heart, ignore all the bad things, blah 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 blah.
Mm,
And I remember having
I
this weird reaction to it where I was kind of like, if you're not out in the world, and
yeah.
if you're not out in the world, and you're not seeing the world, there's no shepherding that you're doing.
Yeah, it's easy to be good around a bunch of good people. That's 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 pretty easy. It's hard to be good when, you're in Walmart. It's a tough place to be good. Parking lot, checkout line, in the store. That's a tough place to be good. It's a good training ground.
A great conversation I had with Chris Rivera, old episode, was about uh, make sure that you're the person, and I think he said this: make sure that you're the person that Jesus wants you to be. Pretend like Jesus is standing next to you all the time.
Yeah.
Like pretend like he's watching you. And so when you're alone and you're road raging, grabbing that steering wheel in the car, He's in the
Were you
passenger
with
seat.
me earlier? Oh,
It's,
I
it's interesting. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna share, a philosophy I have that's not compassionate, but it is funny. Slow drivers are the most selfish people on the planet because they
100%.
obviously don't think that I have something to do, and I do. So,
I love the talk, This Is Water, and he talks about driving through traffic, and he's like, "Have you ever considered that you might be in their way? Have you ever considered that the driver that just cut you off in that SUV was racing to the hospital because his son is blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
blah?" Like, have you ever even considered that?
no. I
Have you
always think they're the problem.
exactly. Have you ever been, when the person at the grocery mart says, "Have a nice day," in that voice that they have you ever considered the monotony and the
Oh,
boredom of that job
yeah,
of just wringing shit out and bagging it up and how important that shit's important,
yeah,
you know? And just that ability to look at somebody else and be like, "Man, uh, good friend of mine, Mark, said this. You don't know what it takes to be somebody else."
it's true. I'm
Mm,
gonna steal that. I like that.
awesome. So we got strength and compassion. What else?
I mean, you gotta work hard. Like, I don't care what you're doing. You know, our we got 5. So and I teased about being an Uber driver, amateur, because I don't charge. But if you're gonna do all this stuff, like, you're gonna do it, right? Like, if you're gonna play baseball, play golf, play basketball, play volleyball, go to gymnastics or tumbling. Sometimes I think gymnastics has a bar and they don't use that. I got yelled at the other day because I didn't call it the right thing. It's tumbling, my bad. Um, then you're gonna work hard at it. You're not gonna just go do something to be doing it. And, my wife, I think I work hard. I mean, my wife is like, you know, 5:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that she's actually sat down. I don't know if I've seen her sit down. It's rare. So they get us, and I mean, they know I work a lot. I don't know if it's hard, but it's a lot. But like you can't let them see you yearn for a big break or like you need rest. Although we need it, I get my rest when they're asleep. I get up and I get an hour to myself and I work out and read and listen to stuff and all that stuff. But, like I want them to have a work ethic. I back to when I was running a pretty big business. I mean, it wasn't lack of skill or will for new people to make it. It was work ethic.
Mm,
That was it was like, my dad, who is a complete superstar, but as hard as a coffin nail, he told me before I got my first job, you can work half days, first 12 hours of the second 12 hours. And he wasn't kidding.
mm,
And like, he kind of laid out to me, like, this is what you're going to have to do. And, I think that's being lost. Like I mean, if you look at the culture is how much whatever time I can get work from home. And I sound like an old grouchy asshole saying that, but in the business I came from, you can't do that. You can't build a business in 30 hours a week
right.
and expect it to work out. And you can't take, sorry, it's going to offend everyone. You can't take a 16-week paternity leave and expect it to work out because your prospects don't care that you're gone for 4 months. They don't. And that's just hard truth. Like, I get it. And you should take one if that's what you think you should do. But you can't expect the people that are waiting on you to be like, oh, you're back. Can I just give you everything? It doesn't work that way. So, and that's different. That's different for dads than it is for moms. I think there is a for moms like, oh, you're back. Great. That's probably expected. That's probably how the Bible intended it.
Mm.
But it's that work ethic and mentality of like, I'm going to work hard. And it blows my mind. People don't want to do it. Doesn't mean you have to work 100 hours a week. I'm saying it's just, you know, put 8 to 10 hours in a day, especially if you're young. What else are you doing? You need me time for what?
I I love I hear you, I hear you, I love it, and I completely agree. I think one of the best things I did right out of college was I worked at a call center.
Oh,
Brutal,
that's
shitty work.
good experience though.
Oh, man, it was so great. I loved every second of it, and I hated every second of it.
Yeah,
You know,
but think of
walking
how tough you are now.
yeah,
I mean,
there's very little
seriously.
yeah. That part, that was super, super meaningful, and that was, you know, and I grew up in Detroit, so it was like, we work hard. That's what I always said. I said, you know, I've been because I have been around the country a whole bunch of times. I said, "You know what? People here in Detroit work hard and play hard."
But yeah,
Like, that's it. Like, when I think of Detroit, that's what I think of. Working their asses off, partying real hard at the end of the night.
yeah. I
Just
had
that.
that. I had that lifestyle for a decade.
Yeah, yeah. So that was
uh,
super fun. That was really
yeah.
great. But that I completely agree, you know, because I left that world to go work on video games. And I remember remember it was like I was a couple months in, just a couple months into the career. Just released the first game. And some of the guys were kind of bemoaning the work and stuff like that. And I said, "Do you realize there's 10,000 kids behind you? Like, have you thought at all?" I turned it was like it was an artist, and he was, like, bemoaning the crunch that we like, it was brutal. Like, it was a brutal crunch. Like, it was
Has to be because you have to
7
get
days
it
a
all
week.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7 days a week, 12-hour days, Monday through Friday, and then it was 10 hours on Saturday and then 8 hours on Sunday, and then we are back at it again. It was so bad, we were bringing in our laundry and had a professional laundry service doing our laundry. Like, it was rough.
Jeez.
Like, nobody was like, it was just really hard. And I remember just turning to them and being like, "Look, I know we've been through something crazy. There's 2 things. Number 1, we've been through it. Number 2, there's 10,000 kids behind you.
Right.
10,000 people. They would kill for what you're doing. Literally.
Absolutely.
It's their absolute dream." And I said, like, show some freaking gratitude. Like, just be happy that you're here.
Yeah.
Like, and you're here as long as you perform. And you stop performing and you're done. And you're out and you're washed up and you're burnt out. That's it. So right now
It's
you're living the dream.
you said a word that triggered me because it's our word for this year. It's gratitude. We do, and I think that what you said, like people don't realize how good they have it, even when it's hard. And our last year, we've done a lot of really cool stuff as a family. And, like when you're in a Airbnb on the ocean for Thanksgiving and you're bitching, like, and that was me too. I wasn't talking about kids. I was talking about me. Uh, but there's that's where we were on at Thanksgiving. And I kind of thought, I can't believe anyone's on like, complaining beyond the normal little kid stuff. But like, that's like, I had a moment where I'm like, hey, we need to focus in 23 is going to be, let's show a lot of gratitude because, 23 is going to be a tough year for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, and we got a lot to be, I have a lot to be grateful for. My kids do, my wife, of course she does. I mean, you see me. But we've got a good family and I think that's unique. I mean, we're a family, so like that's important to me, good and bad. And to be grateful for that. And and I'm saying that mostly to myself. Sometimes I get irritated and I want to be a little more grateful for how lucky I am. I mean, I married well. My kids are all pretty good most of the time, you know. So,
Well, the false modesty is good there, but you put the time in, you put the effort in, you built it,
well,
right?
yeah, and when you say that and I hear it, I think like I don't think you can ever if you really want it to sustain, I don't think you can scale that. I don't think you
Right.
can scale yourself out of the family. And I've seen some people do that, by the way,
Hmm,
where then they kind of get into their own mode.
hmm.
And yeah, I got a buddy who just went through a tough one, and I think he scaled himself out of the picture. So
That was so he scaled himself out,
yeah,
and that was the results.
yeah,
It's interesting. It's
yeah.
interesting, right? Because the common wisdom in I mean, for those feel good fathers that don't really understand what we're talking about, or for those that just want a refresher, right? In business, if you own a business, if you want it to scale, you cannot do the work. This is what we mean
Correct.
by working on or in the business. If you are generating revenue in any way, shape, or form, or even costing revenue in any way, shape, or form in the business, you are a bottleneck. It's the theory of constraints if you apply manufacturing ideas to a business. So if you want to scale, you have to, by scaling, you're getting yourself out of that. You're putting people in place for the different jobs and tasks so that you can take that higher level view and run the big show, right?
Right.
Have the vision, empower the people. And that's
Yes.
what Joe was referring to later on. It
Yeah.
doesn't work in families.
No.
You know,
Do you want a
so
funny example of that, Jay?
yes, I do.
So my oldest boy had his wisdom teeth out Tuesday, and yesterday was trash day, and I was furious that I had to take the trash out. And then Susan, who's my wife, was like, "You understand, like, if he moves around, he gets dry sockets." I'm like, "What the hell are dry sockets?" Which, I mean, I was furious that I had to take the trash out, like that task, because I had scaled the trash to my son.
Mm,
But then I realized, like, okay, maybe he doesn't. It's that type of mentality. Is what I mean is like you can't scale yourself out of the being the dad and those things. I mean, you see what I'm saying? But
I
yes,
do. Yeah.
in business, however, if you're doing everything, then you have a ceiling, um, and that's okay with some people.
Yeah. Yeah. You do you. You
Yeah,
get that. I love it. I think one of the biggest, uh, I love that. One of the biggest, I guess, epiphanies or biggest paradigm shifts that I had was recognizing that. Like if it's not being done in the house, just freaking do it. And that
yeah,
just and then it gets and and get then you get all the serotonin and all the other kind of jazz because as the paternal person, like, yeah, you
yeah,
get serotonin from doing charity work and giving your time, but you also get it for fixing shit. So,
yes.
and
It's the double-edged sword of Christmas when you have to put something together late at night on Christmas Eve, and you're furious about that, and then you actually get it done. You're like, "This is freaking awesome."
the
Uh,
the age old of every mother and father probably has
uh-huh.
this conversation with their kid about if you're awake, Santa doesn't come. So go to bed early, fall asleep.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was a litany. It was an all-day effort by my wife and I to make sure that our eldest was in bed asleep by, like, 8:30,
Oh,
and she was in bed asleep by 8:30. So, like, 9 o'clock hit,
that
presents
is a huge accomplishment.
presents were
Congratulations.
out, and then we were in bed, and it was just like,
Oh
"Alright."
my god, I'm
It was so
envious.
good.
Uh, my
It
my
was so good.
11-year-old was pulling ninja moves.
Oh, yeah.
Like his
Yep.
door was quietly opening.
Yep.
It was a whole ordeal, but that's a big win. I'm happy for you. That's a big
Thank you.
one.
Thank you. I'm gonna write, downloadable. You can download it, and then I'm joking, but guide to running Christmas well. Uh actually, comment below if you want
Yeah,
that. Comment on the pod or
there you
on
go.
the YouTube show if you want that. I'll write it up.
Click the link.
Like, that's great. Um, before we transition, I think that one thing that I really, when it comes to any business owner, I really there's a certain set of conversations that you can do to help with financial literacy because you can't get it from other areas. It's very difficult to asynchronously teach financial literacy. What I
Mhm.
mean by asynchronously meaning is that it's very difficult to pick up a book and teach a 10-year-old, say, read this book, and you're going to learn financial literacy.
Right.
Most of the time, it requires a direct mentorship, right?
Yes.
Because already money is already abstract. So then you're taking somebody that doesn't understand abstract things and trying to teach them about it. What's like one really big like financial lesson that you've taught? I mean, we have the giving piece, but what's another big financial lesson that you taught your family?
Well, I mean, it's not saving
Mm,
that which is what most people think. What I try to teach them is abundance.
mm,
I think that most of us were raised, you know, my mom and dad were raised by people that didn't go to college, some didn't finish high school, my immigrants. I mean, you do the lineage. They are raised by people that they couldn't scratch two quarters together. They lived their grandparents were in the depression and then they were born, the boomers, and that level of scarcity bleeds into their like, it's in their fabric. Like, if you my dad, who's super successful by all means. I mean, he's been a CEO, a doctor, and a president. He's held those 3 titles. He still, his mom and dad, I think his dad finished the 10th grade. I don't know that his mom went to high school. I mean, they just and they did okay, but there were periods of time they just didn't have any money. And I think it gets ingrained to you that this is all you're gonna get. This is it. Like, you either make the most of this quarter or you're done. And my mother was, my grandpa, Dominic Garvin, I mean, he had 11 brothers and sisters who were Italian immigrants. And I mean, they lived in a 2-bedroom house and like just poverty. So their mindset around money was like, turn the lights off. We used a Dago towel, which was like not napkins. That's a towel that you pass around and you wash after supper because you're not going to waste napkins or paper towels. And what I want to teach my kids more, and that changed as I got older. My dad changed jobs, and I can tell his story some other time. But what I want my kids to understand is you're not limited. They're actually more, quite frankly, more savings conscious than I am. They're like, I don't want to spend the money on that. I'm like, look, when it's time to worry about money, I'll let you know. But what I want you to see from me is there's no cap on us. That doesn't mean we're frivolous and buy stupid stuff. And I mean, within reason, but it's not like, hey, you have to save every penny. It's that you have the ability to do as much as you want. That's what I want. The financial lesson is that.
Mm.
And I think we program and institutions and program our kids for control and scarcity. So that's not how I operate. For example, like, this may seem silly, but I believe, if from my pay grade, like, if there's something that is lower cost than what I would generate an hour, I definitely do not do it. So any chore, any household, anything, I will pay for it. That's leverage. That's real leverage. I talked about 2 hours of giving to the church on Saturday, but 2 hours of mowing, that's not giving to anyone. Now, some fathers, that's their only sanctuary. So power to you. If mowing and yard is because I know it's not because you truly enjoy it, it's because it's the only place you have peace. You have my full backing. But if you're begrudgingly doing that stuff and you could pay someone $50 to come do it, if you are doing it, you're telling yourself, I can't get the extra 50. That's a scarcity mindset. And my mindset is, I'll go take that hour and get 750. And that 50, I don't even know. There's hygiene. I don't even feel, I have no idea. So, like, that type of mentality. So I'm not teaching them to be frivolous with their money. I'm teaching them to be unlimited with their upside and their capabilities so that they can then go spend the time with the people they love versus daddy being out, doing stuff. Now, their mother, on the other hand, thoroughly enjoys all those things I just talked about. Like, she enjoys them. So there are times when I put a smile on and put potting soil in plants and clean, and that's her thing. I mean, so, even though I could, but that's a different lesson. That's like, hey, sometimes you gotta do the stuff you don't really want to do because it's enjoyable for everyone. And I end up enjoying it. So I usually just bitch up until the point of doing it, then do it. But do you see what I'm saying? So from a financial standpoint, condition yourself for abundance. Money's fungible, right? Like, it follows wherever. So if you're scarce, it's not going to follow you. It just won't. It's how it works. I wish I, had the insight on that. I don't. I just know that's a fact. So from a financial family aspect, that now in business, like, if you want to take that to business, you have to that's more about taking some risks. You have to risk some of your capital versus just holding on to it, because if your mindset is, well, I've made X amount of profit. So if you're looking at a financial statement and we have X amount of profit, what I think a lot of people are going to do next year, Jay, is they're going to say, oh, well, it's potential recession. So I'm just going to I'm going to covet this and not do anything with it. And I'm telling you, as someone who's been through two in my adult life, major financial crises, the dot-com bubble and the mortgage and the financial crisis of 08 and 09, If you deploy sweat equity and real equity in those times, you will prosper.
Yes.
That's how, if you're worried about what you're hearing on the news, my recommendation is turn the news off. That'd be step one. But if you are worried about that, work as hard as you possibly could, like you never have, and invest your money wisely. Don't just protect yourself with it. Nothing good will come from that. You'll come out on the other side more stressed out with the same amount of money. Does that sound good?
Not particularly.
Is that a good upside? Now, depending on I mean, if you're I should cover that. If you have a sales component to your business where you have a marketable product, whether it's your consultative services or a physical product, I would say this is when you're this is more opportunistic than it is when everything's going great, it's harder.
I really get reminded of this situation. It was Gary Vaynerchuk about 5 years ago was saying he was really disappointed in the current startup scene. He's like, money's super easy. Like, I don't care. You can sneeze and get $1 million. Who cares?
Well, I mean, and I don't like complexity, but I came from that world. Last year's rounds, that may be all you ever get.
It was down. I read this.
Eh, eh,
It went down something like 60%.
yeah.
So
Now you're gonna have to
40%.
perform.
Yeah, 40% of what was given out in 2001 was given out
Yeah.
in 2022. So the money is drying up.
So instead of saying that may be all the capital you get in the raising, now you have to take that and multiply it. Before you're marked to market, you really didn't even have to perform. And like I don't know, I could go on and on about valuation and everything. Valuations are skewed. And I don't know, in that world, it's always on projection anyway. But the ease of attaining the capital, that's probably gonna go away. But if you have it and now you do what I said, invest it and use it and then use your sweat. Like sweat equity is unlimited, quite frankly. I mean, you did what, 20 hours a day at the camp you're telling me about for 10 days.
Yep.
Sweat equity is unlimited. You only need 4 to 6 hours of sleep a day. If you're truly trying to make an explosion, this is a better time than like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, if I'm handing it out, that just means it's too easy.
Exactly.
And you don't have to perform. And law of necessity says, I do what I have to do. And if I don't have to perform, just give me the money and I'll piss it away. But if I have to make it count and work hard, that's where I just, I see hard times for certain demographics are unavoidable. For people that are entrepreneurs or in business, I think that this is just an opportunity. I mean, I saw people hide under their desks in 08 and 09 and make no progress. And I saw people double and triple their businesses. And I was one of those. So, and it wasn't because I'm brilliant, which I kind of am, but like back then I wasn't as smart as I am today. But you know what I mean? It's because I didn't hide under my desk.
Yeah.
I kind of went into, I talked to the clients. I went out and prospected hard. I did the hard things in a tough time. And that was, extremely profitable and fulfilling. I mean, would you rather have someone that's like head on with it and talking to you about your strategy and what to do, or someone who's scared to talk to you because shit's hitting the fan? Like there's a certain integrity to the business itself.
Joe, this has been really great. And what a great note to end on as we're entering the time period that we are. And I think great information in general. So if folks want to learn more about you, reach out to you, do some business with
Yeah.
you, where can they find you?
I really, the best place is my Calendly, and you can put it in the notes
I'll put it in
below.
the show notes below.
Put it in the show notes. I mean, jump on a call. I always like to have conversations with people, what's going on in their world, learning and connecting. It's one thing that I'm getting, a lot better at is virtual connection, Jay.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on.
All right, man. Thank you.
Hey, Feel Good Fathers, hit that like button to let YouTube know that you liked this video. Comment below with your thoughts and reactions to this interview. I really want to hear what you have to say. As a personal brand strategist, I hear all the time about coaches, trainers, speakers, and authors doing the right thing, but at the wrong time. We specialize in helping brand builders have more impact, more credibility and clarity, and developing an overall brand strategy. When you work with Brand Builders Group, we'll help you do the right thing at the right time. Request a free brand call below. There's a link in the description. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll get updates when the new episodes are launched, and it really helps out the community and the channel. We'll see you next time.